The hiss of the airlock door seemed especially loud in the crowded docking bay. Nova Blackwell stepped through, her crisp white flight suit a stark contrast to the motley uniforms of the alien officers milling about Galactic Defense Station Omega-6. She paused, taking in the bustle of activity, the gleaming ships, and most prominently, the stares that followed her every move. First human in the Interstellar Defense Force pilot program. The thought still felt surreal, even after 3 years of grueling academy training. Nova adjusted the small duffel bag on her shoulder and squared her stance. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory. "Stand tall when they look down on you, Nova girl. Their height doesn't determine their worth or yours." She smiled at the memory, fingers brushing against the worn metal wrench tucked into her utility belt, her grandfather's lucky tool and her most treasured possession. Elias Blackwell had been a brilliant but misunderstood engineer. His theories on harmonic resonance technology dismissed as fantasy by Earth's scientific establishment. He died believing his work would never see the stars. "You're wrong, Grandpa," she whispered. "We made it." A harsh buzz from the station's communication system interrupted her thoughts. "Pilot Blackwell, report to Captain Zeol in docking administration immediately. Repeat, Pilot Blackwell to docking administration." Nova straightened her already impeccable uniform and made her way through the crowded bay, aware of the murmurs that followed her. The coalition species had been working together for centuries, but humans were latecomers, admitted to the Alliance barely 40 years ago and still considered primitives by many. The IDF pilot program was meant to be a prestigious opportunity, a chance to prove humanity's worth among the stars. She reached the administration office and found the door already open. Inside, a tall Praxian officer with mottled blue skin sat behind a desk covered in holographic displays. Captain Zeol, presumably. 2 junior officers, Ventrosians, by their distinctive crested heads, stood nearby, whispering to each other and casting glances in her direction. "Pilot Nova Blackwell reporting as ordered, sir," Nova announced, standing at attention. Captain Zeol looked up slowly, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Ah, the human." His tone conveyed volumes of skepticism. "Your credentials have been processed." He gestured to a data pad. "You've been assigned to the TR-490. Nova maintained her composure even as the 2 junior officers. Their name badges identified them as Lieutenant Crow and Lieutenant Krasnickard openly. "The TR-490, sir?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "I was under the impression I'd be assigned to a patrol vessel." Zeol's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Your impression was incorrect. The TR-490 is a transport vessel. Your duties will consist of supply runs to the monitoring stations in Sector Cygnus Reach." Behind her, Lieutenant Crow whispered something to Kra, loud enough for Nova to hear. "Delivery girl." How appropriate for a primitive. Nova ignored them, focusing on Zeol. "Sir, with respect, my simulation scores in tactical maneuvering were top of my class. I'm qualified for..." "You're qualified for what I assign you to." "Pilot," Zeol interrupted. "The TR-490 leaves in 3 standard hours for monitoring station CR-11. Your crew manifest and cargo details are in the pad. Dismissed." Nova saluted sharply, collected the data pad, and turned to leave. As she reached the door, Lieutenant Crow spoke again. "You better hope you don't encounter any pirates out there, human. The TR-490's about as maneuverable as a dying Targonian slug." Laughter erupted behind her as she stepped into the corridor. But Nova didn't look back. She'd expected resistance, even hostility, but being relegated to what amounted to a delivery truck. This wasn't advancement. It was humiliation disguised as opportunity. She walked quickly to the lower docking bay where the transports were kept, checking the manifest on her data pad. 4 crew members besides herself, a navigator, a communications officer, an engineer, and security, all aliens, none with distinguished service records. And the ship, the Nova stopped short when she saw the TR-490. Rust bucket would have been a charitable description. The transport's hull was marred with scorch marks and patched panels, its landing struts visibly misaligned. It looked ancient compared to the sleek vessels in the main bay. "They're laughing now," Nova muttered, a plan already forming in her mind as she ran her hand along the ship's battered exterior. "But they'll laugh differently later." She boarded the ship, finding the cramped interior as uninspiring as the exterior. The bridge consisted of 5 stations arranged in a semicircle, with bare metal walls and exposed conduits. 2 crew members were already there, a Mukaran with iridescent scales at the engineering station and a Praxian female checking weapon systems. "You must be the human pilot," the Mukaran said, rising from his station. He was shorter than Nova by at least 30 centimeters, with eyes that shifted color as he spoke. "Engineer Plex, this ship is—" He paused, seemingly searching for a diplomatic word. "A disaster," Nova finished for him. "But that's about to change." The Praxian security officer snorted. "I'm Mara, and you're delusional if you think anything's changing. The TR-490 is where careers go to die." Nova smiled, unperturbed. "We'll see about that." She moved to the pilot station, running her hands over the outdated controls. "I need to inspect the engine room." Plex blinked, his eyes shifting to a curious yellow. "Why?" "The diagnostic shows all systems functioning within acceptable parameters." "Acceptable isn't good enough," Nova replied, already heading toward the rear of the ship. "Not where we're going?" She spent the next hour in the engine room, methodically examining every system while Plex watched with increasing interest. The ship's propulsion was based on standard pulse drive technology, efficient enough for straightforward transport runs but woefully inadequate in terms of maneuverability or defensive capabilities. "This configuration is at least 20 cycles old," Nova muttered, examining the drive coils. "But the core housing is compatible with Series 7 stabilizers." Plex moved closer. "Series 7, those are military grade. This ship isn't authorized for—" "I know." Nova looked up at him, a spark of determination in her eyes. "How do you feel about bending a few rules, Engineer Plex?" The Mukaran's scales rippled with uncertainty. The chief engineer would never approve modifications of that magnitude. "A chief engineer Drav doesn't need to know." Nova pulled her grandfather's wrench from her belt. "Not yet, anyway." She reached into her duffel bag and removed a small device, a cylinder with intricately etched patterns covering its surface. Plex gasped in recognition. "That's a harmonic resonance amplifier. Those are experimental. How did you—" "My grandfather designed it," Nova explained, examining the engine housing. "His theories on subspace harmonics were rejected by Earth scientists, but he never stopped working. This was his final prototype." She held up the wrench. "And this was his favorite tool. Together, they're going to transform this ship." Plex's eyes shifted rapidly between colors. This violates at least 12 IDF protocols." 14, actually," Nova corrected with a grin. "Are you going to report me?" The Mukaran was silent for a long moment, his scales shifting through a spectrum of colors before settling on a determined blue. "No. But if we're doing this, we're doing it properly. The power coupling will need reinforcement, and the navigation systems will require recalibration." Nova's smile widened. "I knew I'd like you, Engineer Plex." They worked frantically over the next 2 hours, installing the harmonic amplifier in the ship's core and making the necessary adjustments to prevent system overloads. The device was designed to enhance the ship's standard propulsion by creating a resonant field that amplified thrust while minimizing energy consumption, a theoretical impossibility according to conventional physics. But Elias Blackwell had never cared much for conventional limitations. By the time the rest of the crew arrived, a Ventrosian communications officer named Telix and the gruff chief engineer Drav, a Barlaxian with perpetually furrowed brows, Nova and Plex had concealed their modifications behind standard access panels. Pre-flight checks complete, Nova announced from the pilot's seat as the crew settled into their stations. Preparing for departure. Drav growled from the engineering station. System diagnostics show unusual power fluctuations in the main drive. Nova exchanged a quick glance with Plex. Within normal parameters for this model, the TR-490 has always had harmonic inconsistencies. Before Drav could argue further, Nova opened the communication channel. Control. This is TR-490 requesting departure clearance for supply run to monitoring station CR-11. TR-490, you are cleared for departure, came the response, accompanied by barely concealed laughter. Try not to break down before you reach the sector boundary. Nova's jaw tightened as she guided the ship out of the docking bay. She could feel the eyes of the control room staff on her, waiting for her to fail, expecting the human to embarrass herself in her obsolete vessel. Once they cleared the station's immediate vicinity, Nova's hands flew over the controls. Preparing for pulse drive engagement, brace for acceleration. Standard acceleration for the TR-490 is hardly worth bracing for, Mara commented dryly from the security station. Nova smiled. This won't be standard. She activated the pulse drive and simultaneously triggered the hidden harmonic amplifier with a sequence keyed to her grandfather's wrench. The response was immediate and dramatic. The ship surged forward with a force that pushed them all back in their seats. The stars outside streaking into lines as they accelerated far beyond the vessel's rated capacity. By the 7 moons, Telix exclaimed, gripping his console. What's happening? Drav was already furiously checking his instruments. The engines are outputting at 300% of maximum rated thrust. This is impossible. Nova smoothly adjusted their course, feeling the ship respond with unprecedented precision. The TR-490, previously as maneuverable as a dying Targonian slug, now moved with the grace of a patrol cruiser. How are you doing this? Mara demanded, her earlier disdain replaced by shocked respect. Let's just say I made a few adjustments. Nova replied, putting the ship through a series of maneuvers that would have been impossible before. The harmonic amplifier was working perfectly, transforming the aging transport into something entirely new. Plex monitored the engine outputs with barely concealed excitement. The resonance field is stable. Power consumption is actually 20% below normal despite the increased output. Drav moved to Plex's station, his expression thunderous. What have you done to my engines? Enhanced them, Nova answered before Plex could respond. Without compromising safety. This is unauthorized modification of IDF equipment, Drav sputtered. I'll have you both reported and what? Nova challenged, turning to face the chief engineer. Have us removed from the prestigious assignment of supply runs on an obsolete transport? Report us after we return, if you still want to. But right now, we have a mission to complete, and my modifications will get us there faster and safer. Drav glowered but returned to his station without further protest. Telix and Mara exchanged impressed glances, reassessing their new human pilot. The journey to monitoring station CR-11 should have taken 18 standard hours. They arrived in just under 12, the TR-490 performing beyond anyone's expectations, except perhaps Nova's. She had pushed the ship hard but stayed just within the safety thresholds calculated by her grandfather's research. As they approached the monitoring station, a small outpost situated near the Helios dust cloud to track ship movements in the sector. Nova reduced speed and deactivated the harmonic amplifier. No need to advertise their capabilities just yet. The station acknowledged their arrival with surprise. TR-490, you're 6 hours ahead of schedule. Proceed to Docking Bay 3 for cargo transfer. Nova guided the ship to the designated bay, executing a perfect docking maneuver that belied the transport's supposed clumsiness. As the crew prepared for cargo offloading, she caught Plex watching her with curious eyes. "Your grandfather," he said quietly. "He must have been remarkable." Nova nodded, a shadow of sadness crossing her face. "He died believing his work would never be recognized. The scientific community called him a fraud, said his theories violated fundamental laws of physics. Yet here we are," Plex observed, gesturing to the ship around them. "Your species has a saying. I believe actions speak louder than words." Nova smiled. "We're just getting started." The cargo transfer proceeded smoothly, and they were preparing to depart when Telix called out from the communications station. "Captain, I'm picking up unusual communications traffic, encrypted, but using patterns consistent with the Scarlet Nebula Syndicate." Nova tensed. The Syndicate was a notorious pirate organization that preyed on vulnerable ships in the less patrolled regions of Coalition space. A standard transport like the TR-490 would be exactly the kind of target they preferred. "How many ships?" she asked, moving quickly to her station. Telix focused on his instruments. "Difficult to say with certainty. The dust cloud is interfering with sensors. But I'm detecting at least 3 distinct communication sources." Mara activated the weapon systems, the transport's minimal defensive capabilities consisting of a single pulse cannon and basic shields. "We should request backup from the station." Nova considered this briefly before shaking her head. "Station CR-11 has no defensive vessels. By the time reinforcements arrived from Omega-6, we'd be long gone one way or another." She made her decision. "Prepare for immediate departure. Mara, divert all non-essential power to shields. Telix, send a coded alert to Omega-6 but indicate we're attempting evasion. Drav, Plex, I need maximum efficiency from the engines." As they undocked from the station, Nova kept the harmonic amplifier offline, not wanting to reveal their advantage too soon. The ship moved at standard speed away from the monitoring station, appearing to be an ordinary, vulnerable transport. It didn't take long for the pirates to make their move. 3 sleek vessels emerged from the dust cloud, their weapon systems already powering up. The lead ship, a modified corvette with blood-red markings, moved to intercept their course. "Incoming transmission," Telix announced, tension evident in his voice. "Put it through," Nova ordered, calculating distances and trajectories in her mind. A harsh voice filled the bridge. "Transport vessel, this is Captain Vex of the Scarlet Nebula Syndicate. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we'll reduce your ship to atoms." Nova opened the return channel. "This is Nova Blackwell of the TR-490. We're on an official IDF supply mission and under their protection. Any hostile action against us will result in severe consequences." Harsh laughter answered her. "An IDF rust bucket with a human pilot. The only consequence I see is your imminent destruction if you don't comply. You have 30 seconds. The transmission cut off. Nova turned to her crew, who were watching her with varying degrees of apprehension. "They're expecting us to surrender," she said calmly. "We're not going to do that." Drav snorted. "Against 3 armed pirate vessels? This transport doesn't stand a chance in a fight." "Who said anything about fighting?" Nova replied with a grim smile. "Engineer Plex, prepare the harmonic amplifier for emergency overload procedures. Telix, I need a detailed sensor sweep of the dust cloud density variations, particle composition, everything. Mara, Focus shield strength on our aft section. And Drav. She fixed the chief engineer with a steady gaze. I need you to trust me. Just this once. Before Drav could respond, the pirate vessels moved into attack positions, surrounding the transport. 20 seconds until they opened fire, Mara reported. Nova's hands flew over the controls, making minute adjustments. On my mark, I'm going to execute a maneuver that will seem impossible. Whatever happens, stay at your stations and follow my orders. The seconds ticked down. When the pirate leader began powering up his main weapons array, Nova activated the harmonic amplifier and pushed it beyond normal parameters. The effect was immediate. The TR-490 leaped forward with such sudden acceleration that the pursuing ships couldn't react in time. Executing partial phase shift, Nova called out as she manipulated the amplifier's settings, using her grandfather's wrench to make adjustments no standard tool could accomplish. The ship shuddered as the harmonic resonance field began to alter the very fabric of space around them. Not enough for a full phase shift. The technology wasn't that advanced yet, but sufficient to create momentary distortions that confounded the pirates' targeting systems. They're in pursuit, Telix reported as the pirate vessels recovered from their surprise and gave chase. All 3 ships, weapons hot. Nova guided the TR-490 toward the Helios dust cloud, pushing the engines harder than they were ever designed to go. The harmonic amplifier whined with the strain, but held. The dust cloud will destroy our shields at this velocity, Drav protested. Not if we create a resonance bubble, Nova countered, making further adjustments. Plex, recalibrate the field emitters to match the harmonic frequency I'm sending to your station. Plex worked quickly, his scales pulsing with concentration. Ready! As they plunged into the outer fringes of the dust cloud, Nova activated the modified field. The particles that should have bombarded their shields instead flowed around the ship in swirling patterns, guided by the harmonic resonance. Behind them, the pirates were forced to reduce speed or risk shield failure from the dust particles. Nova used the opportunity to execute a series of tight maneuvers through the denser portions of the cloud, using the dust as cover. They're splitting up, Mara warned, trying to flank us. A warning light flashed on the engineering console. Drav checked the readings with growing alarm. The core is approaching critical temperature. We need to reduce output or risk a cascade failure. Nova ignored him, focusing on the tactical situation. 2 of the pirate ships had indeed moved to cut off their escape routes, while the leader, Captain Vex's vessel, stayed close behind. They were being herded into a kill zone. Telix, what's the composition of the dust directly ahead? Nova asked. The communications officer consulted his scans. Higher concentration of metallurgic particles, some reactive elements. It's essentially a sensor dead zone. Perfect. Nova adjusted their course, heading straight for the densest part of the cloud. Plex, prepare for a full harmonic inversion on my mark. Plex's eyes widened. A full inversion? The system isn't designed for that level of... Trust me, Nova interrupted, her hands steady on the controls despite the ship's violent shuddering. It's what my grandfather would have done. They plunged deeper into the cloud, the pirate vessels closing in from 3 directions. When they reached the densest concentration of particles, Nova gave the order. Now! Plex executed the harmonic inversion, causing the resonance field to momentarily collapse before reforming with an inverted phase. The effect was like a sonic boom in space, a shockwave of harmonic energy that scattered the dust particles in all directions, creating a blinding, sensor-jamming cloud that engulfed the pursuing ships. In the moment of confusion, Nova cut all non-essential systems and executed a tight turn that would have torn a lesser ship apart. The harmonic amplifier strained under the pressure, alarms blaring throughout the bridge. "We can't maintain this output," Drav shouted over the noise. "Core temperature exceeding safety limits." As if to punctuate his warning, a violent shudder ran through the ship. Something had hit them, a lucky shot from one of the pirate vessels, firing blindly through the dust cloud. "Direct hit to the main engine housing," Plex reported, his voice strained. "The harmonic amplifier is destabilizing." Nova checked the damage reports flowing across her screen. The situation was critical. The torpedo had pierced their shields and damaged the connection between the standard engines and the harmonic amplifier. Energy was bleeding between the systems, creating a feedback loop that would soon tear the ship apart. "We need to shut down the amplifier," Drav insisted, already reaching for the emergency cutoff. "No," Nova countermanded. "If we deactivate now, we lose all advantage, and the pirates will be on us in seconds." She made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone who didn't understand her grandfather's work. Instead of retreating, she would push forward, activate the full potential of the harmonic drive. Nova pulled her grandfather's wrench from her belt, the worn metal warm in her hand. "Everyone, secure yourselves to your stations. What comes next hasn't been tested before." Before anyone could object, she inserted the wrench into a concealed port beside her control panel modification she had installed during their earlier work. The tool's unique alloy composition served as both key and conduit, allowing Nova to channel the destabilizing energy in a controlled manner. "Initiating full harmonic resonance sequence," she announced as she turned the wrench. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship began to change. It started with a subtle vibration that quickly grew in intensity. Panels throughout the bridge shifted, rearranged, transformed as the harmonic energy reshaped matter according to patterns encoded in the amplifier. The damaged engine housing sealed itself, molecules realigning in perfect harmony. The ship's hull, previously a patchwork of repairs, smoothed and strengthened as the resonance field extended outward. "What's happening?" Mara gasped, watching in awe as her console reconfigured beneath her hands, displays becoming clearer, controls more responsive. "A harmonic restructuring," Nova explained, her eyes alight with the vindication of her grandfather's theories. "The ship is becoming what it always could be." Outside, the pirates had regrouped and were closing in for the kill. Captain Vex's vessel fired another torpedo, but this time, something extraordinary happened. As the projectile approached the TR-490, it seemed to slow, then stop entirely, suspended in the harmonic field that now extended beyond the ship's physical boundaries. Nova manipulated the field controls with precision, her grandfather's theories guiding her actions. The harmonic resonance created a bubble of altered space-time around the ship, not quite a phase shift, not quite a shield, but something entirely new. Within this bubble, Nova could manipulate fundamental forces in ways that defied conventional physics. She turned the field outward, extending tendrils of harmonic energy toward the pirate vessels. As the resonance touched each ship, their systems began to fail, engines sputtering, weapons powering down, shields collapsing as the harmonic interference disrupted their functionality. "By the cosmic void," Telix whispered, watching his displays as the pirate ships drifted helplessly. "You've neutralized them without firing a shot." Nova maintained her focus, carefully modulating the field to disable rather than destroy. The harmonic resonance creates destructive interference patterns in their systems. It's temporary, but effective. The ship completed its transformation, settling into a new configuration that barely resembled the battered transport they had departed in. The bridge was larger, more efficient, with integrated systems that responded to the crew's thoughts as much as their physical inputs. The engines hummed with power that conventional readings couldn't quantify. Nova released her grandfather's wrench, now fused seamlessly with the control console, a permanent part of the ship's new identity. "Secure the pirate vessels with tractor beams," she ordered. "We're taking them back to Omega-6. As the crew carried out her instructions, still dazed by what they had witnessed, Nova opened a communication channel to the station they had left behind. "Monitoring station CR-11, this is Nova Blackwell of the—" She paused, looking around at the transformed vessel. "Of the Harmonic Explorer. We've neutralized 3 Scarlet Nebula Syndicate vessels and require IDF escort to return them to Station Omega-6 for processing." There was a long silence before the station responded, clearly confused by the unfamiliar ship identification. When Nova explained that they were indeed the TR-490, the station's disbelief was palpable. IDF reinforcements arrived 4 hours later, a patrol cruiser that approached with obvious caution, its weapon systems at ready until Nova provided proper identification codes. The pirates were transferred to the cruiser's brig. Captain Vex raging impotently about impossible technology and space-folding witchcraft. The journey back to Omega-6 was conducted at standard speed, Nova keeping the harmonic drive's full capabilities in reserve. She used the time to explain the technology to her crew, now united in their admiration for both her and her grandfather's genius. Even Drav, initially the most skeptical, had become a convert. "The applications for this technology are limitless," he acknowledged, examining the engine readouts with wonder. "Power generation, terraforming, medical applications beyond just propulsion." "That was always my grandfather's vision," Nova replied. "He saw harmonics as the universal language of matter and energy, a symphony of sciences, he called it." When they finally docked at Station Omega-6, they were met by a reception committee that included Captain Zeal, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief, and a delegation from the IDF Advanced Technologies Division. The rust bucket they had laughed at just days ago had returned as something their sensors couldn't fully analyze. Nova stood tall as she exited the ship, her white flight suit now accented with circuit-like patterns that had formed during the harmonic restructuring. Behind her, her crew followed with newfound pride. Pilot Blackwell. Captain Zeal greeted her stiffly. "Your vessel has generated considerable interest. The Advanced Technologies Division has requested an immediate briefing." Nova nodded, noting the absence of Lieutenant Crow and Lieutenant Cry, who had mocked her assignment. "I'd be happy to explain the harmonic resonance technology on Sim, but first, I'd like to formally request that my grandfather, Elias Blackwell, receive full recognition for his theoretical work. His research made this possible." The head of the Advanced Technologies Division of Ventrosian, with elaborate head crests denoting high academic standing, stepped forward. "Already in process. Pilot Blackwell. The Academy of Sciences is establishing a research grant in his name. And—" The Ventrosian hesitated. "We would like to offer you command of a new division focused on harmonic technologies. Your ship, the Harmonic Explorer, as you've named it, would serve as both research vessel and proving ground." Nova's heart swelled with pride, but she maintained her composure. "I accept on one condition. I select my own crew." The Ventrosian nodded agreement, and Nova turned to the 4 aliens who had shared in her triumph. Engineer Plex, Security Officer Mara, Communications Officer Telix, Chief Engineer Drav, I'd be honored if you would continue to serve aboard the Harmonic Explorer. Their acceptance was immediate and enthusiastic. Even Drav, who had initially been her harshest critic, nodded with newfound respect. As the formal proceedings concluded, Nova found a moment alone with her new crew on the observation deck overlooking the docking bay. Below them, technicians swarmed around the Harmonic Explorer, studying its transformed structure with obvious fascination. "What happens now?" Telix asked, his voice filled with anticipation. Nova smiled, her grandfather's vision clearer than ever in her mind. Now we explore. There's a whole universe of possibilities in harmonic resonance technology. My grandfather believed that the greatest advances come when different perspectives harmonize different species, different sciences, different ways of thinking. She looked at her diverse crew: Mukoran, Praxian, Ventrosian, and Barlaxianiac, bringing unique strengths and insights. Together, we're going to change the galaxy. The following morning, Nova strode confidently through the station corridors toward her ship. Officers who had previously ignored or mocked her now stepped aside respectfully. Captain Zeal had formally apologized for his dismissive treatment, and the Academy had requested her presence at their next commencement ceremony to receive an honorary degree on behalf of her grandfather. But it wasn't vindication that drove her as she approached the Harmonic Explorer. It was the promise of discovery, the continuation of Elias Blackwell's dream of harmony among the stars. Her crew awaited her at the airlock, ready for their first official mission. The ship hummed with potential, its systems attuned to their thoughts and needs in ways that conventional technology could never achieve. As Nova took her place on the bridge, she ran her hand over the console where her grandfather's wrench was now permanently integrated, the past flowing seamlessly into the future. "Course, Captain?" Telix asked from the communications station. Nova smiled, feeling the harmonic field respond to her very thoughts. "Everywhere we haven't been. Let's show the galaxy what harmony can accomplish." The Harmonic Explorer disengaged from the docking clamps, rising with impossible grace. As they accelerated away from Omega-6, the ship's harmonic field created a brilliant aurora in their wake, a symphony of light that announced the dawn of a new era in interstellar technology. They laughed when she arrived with her obsolete ship and outlandish theories. They weren't laughing anymore.